So we're live with Marguerite Stern. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
What have you been up to lately? Busy?
So about activism, I'm developing a new group in Paris that is called the Amazons. Because 1 year ago, I started a big campaign about against feminicide. So it's girls who are going in the streets and glue slogans against feminicide. And then this group or this movement, let's say a little bit, I don't know how to say this in English. Like transformed itself. So I had to create a new one that is openly radical feminists. Mm-hmm. And so it's in Paris. We are 30, 40 girls, and we are also developing branches all over France in some other cities. And so we concentrate on street activism, and we are radical feminists.
Mm-hmm. So for people who don't know, these collages are all over Paris, right? I read that you can stand on almost any corner and see some kind of collage, whether it was done by you guys or someone who was inspired by you. So can you tell us a little bit more about that project, just how you thought of that idea?
I started to do that alone last year, 2019, but in February. So I was doing that alone in the city of Marseille, that is in the south of France. And at the beginning, I started to glue posters about personal experiences, about rape, about street harassment, about stuff like that. And so the concept is very simple. I just took what I had at my home, at my place, so it was a regular sheet of paper, and I just added on each sheet of paper one letter painted with black paint. Mm-hmm. And so by adding the letters, then you can form a sentence, a slogan. And so I went to stick that in the streets of Marseille alone. And then I started to write slogans against feminicides, because feminists in France started to bring this topic really on the news, on the medias. And it started to be a really big issue, and the government was not doing anything, and still is not doing anything against that. And so I was doing that alone for many months, and then in September 2019, I moved to Paris, and I made, let's say, a call on social networks so that some other girls can join me. And so I thought that we were going to do that, for 3-4 days, and it would be maybe 15 girls, and it would be cool already. But it was not like that at all. It was like the first day we were 40. And then since this first day, it never stopped. So it's now thousands of girls who are doing that all over France. And it's true that in some cities of France, you can't go in the streets without seeing at least one. It's really known more even in the street than in the social networks. Because what's really important for me with this activism is really to be seen in the streets. Because when you post something on the social networks, the people who can see your image or read your communique, so most of the time they are already convinced by what you're gonna say, But the people that you touch in the streets, it's everybody, even people who are not agreeing with you politically, and that's what is important in this movement. So yeah, it's really in some cities, really even in some villages, women are doing that alone, and it even went across the frontiers of France. It's also in Belgium, in Switzerland, in Spain, in Portugal, in Poland, in the UK, in Canada a little bit, in Italy, yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible campaign, and you are the one who's behind it all. It's pretty fascinating how it's developed. And what happened? You mentioned that something happened with the group and you had to leave. So what happened with that? A lot of people who are listening are definitely going to be aware of what you're about to talk about, and they're probably going to be able to commiserate with you. So what happened?
So, at the beginning, I was welcoming all the girls in Paris at my place, at my home, which was a squat named Le Jardin d'Enfer. And so every day, I was repeating all the time to each new girls the concept of this movement. The fact that we go in the streets, we go together only women, because we are talking about feminicides, but we are also talking about, as a woman, to go in the street and to make this space ours. And it's like the street for women, it's a place where you are always like harassed or even in dangerous situations because of men. So it's really important to go only between women, and to make something big there, to be heard, and also to create really strong links between women. Something that you call sisterhood, It's even more than friendship. It's sisterhood that you build when you do that. And so I was also explaining that we make slogans only about feminicide and domestic violence, because it was a big topic in France at this moment. We had the Grenelle, I don't know how to translate this in English, but it's a Grenelle against domestic violence. So politics gathering up and trying to find a solution. So it was discussed. And also, I knew already that all the women that I was welcoming, they were not agreeing on everything. And so I didn't want those fights to divide us. And I thought that, feminicide, we're talking about a question of life or death. It's like, it's really, lives of women are in danger. So we need to gather against this. And so, yeah, I was repeating that every day. And but from the moment I started to say, okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of distance with this movement, because, I kind of became the main figure of it. All the medias were talking a lot about me, because they were seeing like how I was kind of leading the group when they were coming to make reportage documentaries about us. And so I didn't want to be this figure of this leader of a movement that was like, in this movement there are thousands of women, and I wanted to a little bit like give to some others also the possibility to talk in the medias. So I started to take some distance, and I stopped to manage the Instagram account, and some other women took it. And no, it's not like the collage are not made only against feminicides, but about many other topics, and a lot of topics that divide women, especially the trans activism.
Yeah.
That I'm really against.
Yeah. So the trans activism, that's sort of how we ended up talking, right? I mean, it's something that's been affecting women doing different kinds of feminist work, and then they run into this. I keep seeing this, women who are speaking out against feminicide, femicide, and they're not even talking about trans issues, and then suddenly they're accused of transphobia. Do you remember the first time that you were ever called a TERF or came across this word TERF?
Yeah, it was in February 2019, because when I realized that all the collage on the Instagram accounts were about trans people's rights and stuff like that, I decided to write a thread on Twitter to say what I think about that, and the fact that those issues are totally erasing women issues. and the fact that also for me they contribute to I don't know how to say this in English. Okay, I start again. And the fact that they contribute to encourage stereotyped genders. And as a feminist, I fight against stereotyped genders. I'm for men who if they want to wear a skirt, just wear a skirt. And if girls want to not shave their hair, like, I mean, do it. As a feminist, you have to be against gender stereotypes. And I really think that trans activism is really making them stronger. And so I took a stage against that. And from that moment, I became the number one of the TERFs, all the TERFs in France. You know, it's like my second name.
Okay, well, you're number one. Hey, you're winning. It's pretty good. Number one TERF in France. It's an impressive, a very impressive title. Yeah, so I mean, it's actually not funny because of what in reality has sort of been the consequences of this label, this slur. So what were some of the things that started happening when you had conflict with these trans activists?
It totally changed my life. I lost friends. Some girls that I'm friends with lost friends because they are friends with me. I started to experiment cancel culture. So, for example, you know, I wrote a book about my 10 years experience of militancy because I was a Femen activist before also. And this book is just talking about one of the most, even maybe the most important feminist movement right now in France. And only one journalist talked about it. All the others, they told to my press, I don't know how to say, you know, press worker, like the guy who was dealing with the press contacts for my book. They told him, some of them told him, you know, we can't talk about this girl because she's too polemic, and so, you know. It really affected I don't know, everything in my life. Also, I can't find a normal job right now because I became, let's say, too famous for having a normal job, but not enough famous to live with, to make money with my militancy.
Yeah.
So I'm in between.
Right.
And also what changed in my life is that all the time when I meet new people, it's like I have two reactions: or they admire me so much and I'm a heroine for them, and it's really like I don't know how to deal with that, or they hate me. They hate me because I'm transphobic, as they say, and really, like, even when I walk in the street, I'm afraid that people recognize me because I receive a lot of death threats of people saying, if you go to protest, like in demonstration, and we see you, we will beat you up. So there are many places where I don't even go anymore because I'm too afraid.
Wow. There are places, like there are protests, or there are neighborhoods that you just don't go to?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it's like, I'm sure nothing will happen, you know, but you never know. And as when I was in Femen before, we were receiving a lot of death threats all the time. And so I got a little bit traumatized by it. And now it's like, it's starting again, you know. But when the difference is that when I was inside Femen, the threats were coming from the extreme right and the Islamists. So people that you really fight against. But now it's coming from people who call themselves feminists.
Yeah.
And that's really weird for me. I really don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we're all kind of just bowled over by right now, feminists who have found ourselves on the wrong side of those people who call themselves feminists. And do you, I think I've seen you written that the left hates you, which I completely sympathize with. The left probably hates me too, for the most part, even though I would consider myself a leftist. But did you say that because you are a leftist and you're from the left?
Yeah, I consider myself a leftist. Of course, I'm a anti-capitalist, anti-racist. I'm a leftist, of course. But when you are a leftist, you are also for women's rights and against the canceling of women.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's radical feminism.
Yeah. And radical feminism has now been called reactionary and right wing. I saw a thread that you did on Twitter a few days ago. I think it was like December 23rd, talking about some of the consequences you've dealt with and how you feel like you say what a lot of women wish they could say and want to say, wish they could be saying, know that they would be feeling the consequences. And I know on Twitter, there's so many anonymous people anonymous women, and I think they're looking at your story, and it's why they are anonymous. They know there are very real, very, very real consequences to speaking out about this. And that is why I got in touch with you, because as you know, we're doing our free speech fund, and our goal is to help individuals who have put themselves on the line like you, but also to be able to encourage all of those women and let them know we do want to have their back. And yeah, what kind of solidarity have you received or felt with other women throughout this?
I receive so many messages from women who tell me first, I agree with you. Thank you for speaking. I can't speak. I can't even tell my friends the truth because I know that I would lose them if I would. So thank you for speaking and blah, blah, blah. I receive also so many messages and more messages from women who say, who tell me that I made a change inside them, that the arguments that I gave to them convinced them, and that before they were liberal feminists and now they are turning radical. And all those women, they tell me that when they went on my Twitter or Instagram accounts, it was the first time for them that they had an access to, that they saw that they could read such arguments. Because before, they were only on, I don't know, on big feminist liberal accounts who are all saying the same shit, you know. And because of the cancel culture, like radical feminists like me are not visible, are not loud, even if they try to. And so it's from one side, it's getting me very mad that you know, I'm sure that if we could hear properly the two sides on the medias, more feminists would be radical, more women would be radical feminists. And on one side, I'm glad about that because I really think that more and more women in France are changing their minds. So I receive a lot of messages like that. Yeah, it's like every day. So that's a reason why also I keep on talking, because I know that even if I stop to talk about that, you know me, it's over. I'm done. Like I'm on a blacklist right now, and for maybe not the end of my life, but for many years at least.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to lose. So I continue to talk because I know that many women agree, and I hope that one day they will talk and they will speak too, and maybe we can make a change and make. At least that it's not a shame anymore to be a radical feminist and to say that women don't have penis, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. You would think that would be a good place to be for women to not be scared to say that women don't have penises. But that's where we are right now. And that's terrifying. And that's why we have to, stand up and say something about it. For me, what is the most saddening thing is I hear from teenagers, like really young girls, who know that they say they're a radical feminist or they're gender critical or they're a lesbian, and they can't talk about this stuff, and they're scared, and they know they would be canceled from their friend groups. And when you said that even friends have lost friends by association, it's just so fucked up. I mean, it's like McCarthyism. It's like, are you a communist or have you associated with a communist? It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else do you do daily? What's your life kind of looking like at the moment?
But right now I try to find a new place where to stay, because before I was living in a squat, in which also I had problems because of the trans activism. Like I knew that my address was known because they went to stick collage about trans activism in front of the window of my bedroom. So, and also it's a squat with many men, and they have a problem with violence. Many men, so I have to move. So now I'm looking for a new place where to stay. And not only, I don't want to live in an apartment, I want to live in a squat with women. So now I spend my day looking for empty buildings in Paris, and soon, hopefully, we will take one with my group of activists that is called Les Amazons. Because I think that's one very important thing inside feminism is also to create a new model and to live between women, to really experiment this life of living with each other, creating sisterhood. Because also what I noticed in the queer movement in France is that there is a lot of violence. There are many women writing to me saying that they are traumatized of those groups because one day they said hello woman, and they were banned because they were told that they were transphobic for saying hello woman, hello girls. So for me, it's a really big issue to create women's spaces where we are kind to each other, we feel secure, and we can experiment a life together, a form of separatism also, because I really think more and more that we can't change men, and that they are violent, and that the smartest thing to do when you want to not to be confronted to male violence is to stop to live with men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the way that you, I guess, recommend or advise women to protect themselves and just have boundaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you, so you said people, they made the collage outside your window. Is that where you're living right now?
No, right now I'm in an apartment that a girl gave to me for 1 month.
Okay. Okay. So you have this apartment now for 1 month, one more month from now?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're looking for a place.
Yeah.
And when they did find your address, what did that collage say when they painted it?
So there were one that said trans woman or woman, and the other one said sisters, not sisters.
Yeah. The second one, sisters with a C, not sisters, that, I don't know, I find that very insulting, because it's like saying, well, you can't have your sisterhood. You have to be a subcategory of your own sex. Yeah. What other interactions have you had with these trans activists who took over the collages?
I don't know, mostly interactions through the social networks. But they even did one collage saying les TERF au bûcher, so I don't know how to translate that. You know, bûcher is the place where you burn witches. So it says TERFs, so burn the TERFs.
Yeah.
Even some of them went to demonstrate in front of the studios of Radio France, because I was invited for a radio talk, and they went there to demonstrate against me. It's like, yeah, they even write to journalists when journalists talk about me. It doesn't happen a lot now since 1 year, but each time there is an article about me, they write to the journalist to say, why do you talk about this girl? She's transphobic. You should not talk about this girl. So not journalists are are a little bit scared, I think. So yeah, interactions with them. But I don't talk to them. I mean, they come to harass me on the social networks. Of course, I received a lot of death threats and.
Yeah. I mean, so it wasn't like you went out and were saying stuff about trans people and trans individuals, but it was because you were talking about sisterhood, and because, like you said, someone said the word woman and they got banned and stuff like that, and they're really coming to you and following you. And I was going to ask, like, do you think the journalists aren't covering you because they're scared? It sounds like that is what's happening. They're being mobbed. And it's working, when the activists do that, and they do scare the journalists. Unfortunately, we need a lot more bravery from the press to turn this around. But you did mention a lot more people are becoming aware of this. Do you see this as shifting at all?
I hope it's shifting right now. It's been 1 month. I don't know why. Really, I receive more and more messages of girls who are radical feminists.
Wow.
I hope here it will a little bit change in France.
Yeah, I hope so too. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's almost just getting started here. I'm in California, and we have things like gender clinics are just starting to open up more and more, where they're doing surgery on children. So tell us a little bit more about Femen. I'm really curious about Femen. I think, it's something people don't know a lot about here, but we've seen the images and we know a little bit about it. So how did you get involved in Femen, and what did that mean to you?
I got involved in Femen when I was something like 20, so 10 years ago. Femen is the feminist movement that started in Ukraine, and it was first, like the first message was to be against prostitution, because it's really a big issue in Ukraine. So it started there in 2008. And then in 2010, they started to demonstrate topless and writing slogans on their chests, so that, your body becomes your weapon, And as women, we noticed that almost all the feminist issues are about our bodies. So for me, it was really strong when I saw the first images of Femen. I felt like, I don't know, something that I was feeling close to. And so when it arrived in France with Inna Shevchenko, because she has to get a refugee in France because she cut across a 9-meter cross in Kiev in support of Pussy riots. So she arrived in France in 2012, and she started a branch there. So I joined it, and it became my life. At that moment, I was studying in university, and I think like 4 months after, I stopped to get like fully involved in Femen. So I was living in a squat with them, working sometimes in restaurants to be able to buy food for myself. And I didn't have to pay a rent for an apartment as we were living in squats. And we did many actions in many different countries. I even went to countries like Crimea, that is in Ukraine, in Morocco, in Tunisia, when I was jailed for 1 month, in Vatican, many actions in Belgium, in Paris. And three main demands of Femen is first, we are against sex industry, so prostitution and pornography. The second thing is that we're against dictatorship, any kind of dictatorship, because we consider that women are always the first victims of it. And the third thing is against religions. So any religion, of course, because for the same thing, like women are always the first victims of religions. And so we also fight for gay rights and gay marriage in France. It was a big campaign. Yeah.
What was it that happened in Tunisia? You were arrested in Tunisia?
Yeah, we were 3 of us demonstrated in front of the trial, the Palais de Justice, I don't know how to say, the Justice Building in Tunis, because one girl whose name was Amina Zboui, she was a Tunisian woman, she was jailed because she posted a topless picture of her on the internet. So we went there to ask that she's, so they free her. And so she spent 3 months in jail. And thanks to our action, like everybody was talking about it, the French president, the German president, because one German activist was with us, the European Union even, like all the European press. But when it was a Tunisian girl in jail, you know, nobody was talking about it because it was not important for the European world, of course. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, going back to the collage, so forward in time, after your time with Femen, when you started the collage group, what kind of happened when the trans activists came in and took it over? What was that? What were those conversations like? Did they just come in and say, you know, you're transphobic, this has to stop? How exactly did they enact that?
What's your last sentence?
So how exactly did the trans activists enact that? Like, what did they do exactly? What did they do and say when they infiltrated your collage group?
It's just that, you know, there were all those, we had many accounts on Instagram, collage femicide, plus the name of the city. And all those accounts, I started to see more and more collage, like trans women are women, blah, blah. All those things, like talking about everything, but not about femicide and domestic violence. So from this moment, I don't know, I saw that for a few weeks, and then after a few weeks, I decided to react.
Mm-hmm. And so what did you do? What was the first thing you did?
It was a Twitter thread.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really like a big scandal.
Okay, so that's when it all began with the trans activists.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah.
Actually, the first time that I took a stage against that was maybe 1 year before the collage movement, because in France, you know, we had like every year we have a big feminist protest that is called Nous Toutes, like all of us, but feminine version, and so at this time, at the beginning of the protest, there were 3 people that I called 2 men disguised as women. And one woman taking a banner on which was written sex work is work. And so I made tweets about that, and I was called transphobic for the first time at this moment because I said that it was 2 men disguised in women and not women. But I was not like so famous, let's say, at this moment, so it was a small thing. And yeah.
And then you talked about jobs and people knowing who you are, and what happened with that? You know, you've said that you lost 2 jobs. What happened?
So after spending 3 years inside Femen, I was a little bit tired. I needed to build my personal life. So I moved to Marseille in the south of France, and I started to work with refugees because it's an issue that touched me. I think we have to welcome everybody in France. African, European, American, we don't care about the skin color. And so for 4 months, I was living in the jungle of Calais. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a refugee camp for people who want to go from France to the UK. And so I was living with those people who, for many of them were Sudanese, and they really became my friends. And I really like, I don't know, it started to be another fight for me. And so after that, I quit Femen. I wanted to work with refugees to help them. So for 2 years, I was working in an association with refugee people. But after 2 years, some of my colleagues, they learned that I was in Femen before because there were some articles in the local press about me. Because at this moment, somebody shot a bullet inside the window of my apartment because they knew I was Femen before. And because it was guys that were harassing me in the street, and I was answering to them very, like, with a lot of conviction, let's say. So they shot a bullet in my window. So there were articles in the press, and my colleagues saw me in the press, so they knew I was Femen, and they started to harass me, to tell the kids that I was the refugee kids that I was working with. They started to tell them that I'm racist because, you know, when you are against the veil, you are seen as racist. So it was months and months of harassment, and my boss didn't support me at all. So I had to quit my job because it really became too difficult. And after that, I was working with teenagers in high school. And that was the moment when I started to make the collage. And one day I did a collage that said Aya Nakamura president. So Aya Nakamura is a famous singer. And I tweeted this picture. There was a selfie with the collage on the background. And this singer that is very famous tweeted it. And all the kids that I was working with saw it. And so they had my profile on the social networks, and they saw all the feminine images about me, and another harassment started. So I had to quit this job again. So
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh, those are some amazing stories. You know, my story is that I got fired for my tweets. But it was very different because it was just sudden. Just the axe came down and it was all over one time. It wasn't this long campaign of harassment, but well, that came after, I should say. But a lot of women are getting fired for these beliefs, or they're getting harassed or hounded out of their jobs. And you know, what do you have any advice? This is tricky, but do you have any advice for women who are maybe being quiet about this? Should they stay anonymous and protect themselves, or should they speak up and risk it?
I don't know. I don't want to give any advice. The only thing that I have to say, like, maybe I have two things to say. The first thing is that you have to know that it can ruin your life, or it can change your life. It will change your life. And there can have many consequences. But the second thing as well is that once you said it, you feel better. Really, it was my first feeling. It was a feeling of freedom. And that's why I would never exchange my life. It's really tough. It's really difficult. I lost friends. I had even problems with my family. It's really, I have material living conditions that are tough. But I'm totally comfortable with myself. And I think that all the women that at some moment of their lives decided to take stages like this that affected their lives, some of them, it's thanks to them that history changed, you know. And we have to speak. It's because maybe at the moment where we speak, it affects our lives with negative things. But on the long term, I think it will help women's rights. And I prefer to see these long-term things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really powerful. I mean, I know that there are women out there who are hearing that and they almost feel like they're relying on someone like you to bring about those changes because they are in the shadows. You know, they might have kids, they might have some reason that they can't speak out, or like you said, it will change your life. And I don't recommend it either. I mean, like you said, I also hesitate to give advice, but that's exactly why we do want to support you at Plebity. So that's why, and I want to make it clear for everyone who's listening to this, that what we're doing is we're about to start this campaign where we're going to be raising money for Marguerite. So we're going to raise a chunk of money. Our goal is $1,000. We're going to get you $1,000 just to kind of, for some short-term stability, something that you can use it for. Obviously, you could use it for whatever you want. You could give it away to someone if you wanted to, but the point is to show that solidarity, and it would be incredible if we could have some kind of collective where we could support women so that they could give their lives to that struggle. Do you see yourself, it sounds like, you know, that's what you see your life as. Is that how you see your life as going forward? Being in the struggle?
Yeah, yeah, it's my life. It's been 10 years that my life is that, you know. And now, the thing that I want to do is not only to struggle myself, but is to bring women together, to create collectives, to help other radical feminists to gather up. So I gather up radical feminists in Paris, but also in some other cities of France. Like yesterday, we created a new group in Dijon, that is a small city in France, where some radical feminists were totally isolated from each other, and now they met. So it's an incredible thing for them. And so, yeah, what I want to do is not only to be in a struggle myself, but to help women, to encourage them, to tell them that they are powerful, that they can fight the way they want, to show them how we can fight in the streets, to live together, to read books together, to make a change together. I really believe in the collective. And to transmission. I don't know if you understand this word in English, transmission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that the women are totally cut from their history because the writings of the witches were burnt, you know, all the things, many things in the history that women created were burnt or were we said that it's men who did it. So I really think that we need to have knowledges from women. We need to learn from other women, to have models, to have examples, to have women examples. So it will help us to be strong. So this is the kind of model that I want to develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to end on, just tell people about your book.
My book. So my book, the name is Héroïnes de la rue. So it's like heroines in the streets. And it's talking about my experience, about how I fight in the streets. So the first thing is, what is my problem with the street as a woman? The way men forbid us to exist in the street, as they forbid us to exist in all the spaces. And why we have to take the street as a political space to take our rights. So how I did it with Femen, and how I did it with the collage, and how I did it with the living in squats as well. Because when you live in a squat, it's like, it's a first step to the streets. It's really special. Well, forget about that. I will not be able to express it in English. But yeah, and the main message of this book is to say that as feminists, we talk a lot about sisterhood, but we don't apply it many times. And I think that the better way to apply it is not only to gather up together and to talk together, but it's really to make things together, to make things with our bodies, to make things with our hands, because it really creates links that are forever. So I want really to encourage women to go in the street together and to fight in the street together.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Marguerite. It was great to get to talk to you. And for people listening, please consider donating. And you can, I'll have the links below where you can donate to the Free Speech Fund, or you can also become a Patreon member. And in that sense, you actually get to participate in the conversations going on around it and vote in polls and so on. So thank you, Marguerite. Is there any last words you want to leave us with?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.